They told us these cities were gone, lost to time, mythologized into legend, erased by the creeping fingers of weather, war, and willful ignorance. Whole civilizations supposedly swallowed by the earth or drowned beneath the waves. Their existence reduced to stories told around fires, their ruins dismissed as the work of nature or coincidence. They told us not to waste our time, that the clues were red herrings, that the myths were just that, myths. We were told to move on, that the past was settled, that archaeology had mapped the borders of our ancient world, and what lay beyond those maps was only fantasy. But here's the thing, the ruins were never the full story. Now something has changed. We have a tool that doesn't share our biases, that doesn't look at the world through the filters of academic consensus or cultural pride, that doesn't dismiss oral history just because it's inconvenient. We have artificial intelligence. An AI doesn't care if a theory is fringe. It doesn't have an ego to protect or a tenure track to defend. It only cares about patterns, anomalies, repetition, irregularities that human eyes have overlooked for centuries. When you feed it everything, satellite data, ship logs, sacred texts, seismic activity, temperature fluctuations, regional folklore, it starts to see what we could not, because it turns out that the clues were always there, scattered across maps, hidden in languages, buried in forgotten caves and forest canopies. The myths might have been memories. The legends might have been censored reports. And what AI is now finding beneath the surface, quite literally, is shaking the foundations of our historical assumptions. Because maybe these cities were never lost. Maybe they were buried. Maybe they were hidden by time, by intention, or by design. And just maybe someone didn't want us to find them. Let's dive into 5 cities that the world insists are gone. But artificial intelligence, with its neural networks and relentless logic, is whispering back. Not so fast. City 1, Hy-Brasil, the vanishing island. That shouldn't exist off the western coast of Ireland lies the legend of Hy-Brasil, a phantom island that seemed to exist on its own terms. A round landmass, often cloaked in thick mist, said to appear suddenly and then vanish just as quickly. For centuries, it was more than a sailor's tale. It was mapped, chronicled, and feared. It showed up on charts well into the 1800s, consistently placed in the same approximate region of the North Atlantic. Stories about Hy-Brasil vary wildly, yet they share a haunting coherence. Some said it appeared only once every 7 years, as if obeying some hidden lunar or cosmic rhythm. Others swore it was always there, just veiled from ordinary sight. There were tales of men who sailed into the mist and returned changed, silent, hollow-eyed, or suddenly fluent in languages no one else recognized. According to Celtic mythology, Hy-Brasil was home to a race of highly advanced beings. Not aliens, not quite, but human-like in shape, impossibly old in wisdom. They were said to live in great domes of crystal and gold, their knowledge preserved in something called the Singing Vault. The vault's contents, legend says, could manipulate time and memory. It's no surprise the Vatican once funded secret missions to locate the island. All of them failed, officially. For generations, historians dismissed these tales as the fantasy of bored mariners, hallucinations conjured by isolation, exhaustion, and salt-soaked minds. But in the digital age, new tools emerged, and one of them refused to play by the rules of conventional archaeology. AI stepped in where humans had failed. Researchers fed thousands of ancient maps into a neural network trained to identify inconsistencies in geographic data. The AI began noticing something strange: overlapping independent sources from the 14th to 17th centuries that placed Hy-Brasil within a 60 nautical mile radius. That might not sound impressive until you realize how wildly inaccurate most maps from that period were about nearly everything else. When the same region was analyzed with high-resolution satellite imagery and sonar mapping, anomalies began surfacing. Not just noise or natural formations, but concentric ridges, rectangular trenches, and what appeared to be angular depressions far too geometrically regular to be natural. AI-enhanced image processing sharpened the sonar returns, and the result was breathtaking. Outlines of a structure that looked disturbingly like a city wall, a perfect circle, nearly 2 miles in diameter. The anomalies didn't stop there. Machine learning algorithms trained to detect signs of magnetic interference found data spikes in the same region, consistent with underground metal. And not just ore, but alloys. Some readings resembled the magnetic signatures of bronze or treated iron, buried hundreds of meters below sediment. Then came the strangest discovery, a rhythmic thermal pulse. Every 6.91 years, give or take a few days, there's a measurable fluctuation in the water temperature and salinity directly above the site. No tectonic plates, no hydrothermal vents, nothing natural to explain it. This was enough for a European university team to cross-reference hundreds of sailor logs, medieval chronicles, and folklore archives. They digitized and indexed the texts, then ran them through natural language processing (NLP) software, looking for patterns. The AI found linguistic echoes, repeated references to singing vaults, time mirrors, and the chilling phrase, "the place that forgets you once you leave it." These weren't just poetic flourishes. They were consistent, eerily so, across texts spanning 3 languages and 5 centuries. The NLP model returned a 72% probability rating that Hy-Brasil was a real engineered landform. And not just real, but once inhabited by a civilization operating far outside the technological scope of the time. Within weeks of the report's release, the location in question, a seemingly nondescript patch of ocean, was reclassified by the British Ministry of Defense as a restricted naval training zone. All non-military drone flights in the area were banned. Publicly, the reasoning was vague: sonar interference and shipping hazards. Privately, researchers involved in the study began receiving letters urging them to pause their investigations. One even claimed his university funding had mysteriously dried up after a phone call he was not allowed to record. Hy-Brasil, it seems, is still playing by its own rules. It appears when it chooses. It disappears when threatened. And now, in the age of artificial intelligence, perhaps for the first time in centuries, it's been seen again. But the real question isn't whether it's there. It's why someone doesn't want us to know. City 2. Ubar, the Atlantis of the sands. Ubar, also known as Iram of the Pillars, has long been a tantalizing mystery. It is described in the Quran as a magnificent city of unparalleled wealth and power, ultimately destroyed by divine wrath for its arrogance and moral decay. The desert took it, according to legend, in a single violent act. A sandstorm that lasted for 7 days and nights. The city, its people, its knowledge, all swallowed whole. For centuries, scholars dismissed Ubar as a parable, a moral tale cloaked in mythological grandeur. Explorers searched in vain, returning with nothing but sand in their boots and tales of mirages. But something changed in the 1990s, when NASA's space shuttle radar detected the faint scars of ancient caravan routes beneath the Rub al Khali, the empty quarter, one of the most desolate places on Earth. These trade routes weren't random. They all converged on a single, unassuming location. When archaeologists arrived, they found a sinkhole, and at the bottom, the remnants of stone structures that didn't match any known civilization. There were columns, pillars, precisely as the ancient texts described, but they were damaged, scattered, as if something had collapsed inward, as if something massive had once stood and then vanished. That alone would have been enough to raise eyebrows, but artificial intelligence took it further. Using ground-penetrating radar, satellite imagery, and electromagnetic resonance data, researchers at a Middle Eastern university developed a deep learning model to analyze the layers beneath the site. What the AI found stunned them. It detected a dome, not a natural cave or erosion pocket, but a smooth, symmetrical, 400-meter-wide structure buried beneath layers of shifting sand and rock. The curvature was perfect. The depth was calculated at approximately 130 meters below surface. It wasn't a formation, it was built. The dome was not empty. Seismic resonance patterns, essentially listening to how vibrations traveled through the chamber, revealed a complex series of smaller cavities connected by narrow, precise passageways. It was as if the dome housed something or was built to contain something. One AI model, using pressure and acoustic mapping, flagged the structure as exhibiting behavior not unlike modern controlled atmosphere facilities. In other words, the dome might still be sealed and pressurized. The implications? Staggering. Generative AI was then used to reconstruct what the city might have looked like, pulling from archaeological fragments and mythological references. The resulting models depicted a city far beyond its time, multi-level architecture, water-purifying towers, and something resembling a computational structure based on light refraction. But things got stranger. Satellite images taken over the span of 12 years revealed a slow, recurring shift in sand patterns around the site, almost like breathing. AI models trained on desert movement patterns ruled out natural wind behavior. The sand wasn't just moving with the wind, it was reacting to something underground. In 2021, a private expedition attempted to deploy a drilling probe to verify the dome's materials. Within hours of initiating the dig, all communications ceased. When the crew returned, they were visibly shaken. One refused to speak. Another claimed they had heard a sound under the ground that wasn't an echo. Weeks later, the dig site was cordoned off by military contractors. Publicly, the reason given was unexploded ordnance. Privately, one of the researchers received a letter, unsigned, that simply read, "Some doors remain closed for a reason." In that phrase, it matched the translation of an inscription found etched on a stone tablet nearby, deciphered by AI from Proto-Arabic script. He who unseals the silence calls forth the judgment of sand. Ubar may not just be lost, it may be sealed, preserved, waiting, or warning. City 3, Z, the Amazon's urban ghost. Percy Fawcett disappeared in 1925, searching for what he called Z, a lost city deep in the Amazon. He believed it was home to an ancient civilization that predated known history. He was mocked, called mad, said to be chasing a fever dream. But in the 21st century, LiDAR, a form of aerial scanning using laser pulses, began to reveal what machetes never could. Vast urban grids, canals, causeways, even pyramids. But it wasn't until AI entered the scene that things exploded. By feeding massive data sets into AI, botanical patterns, erosion models, and even monkey migration routes, researchers found that certain clearings were anything but natural. They form repeating geometrical shapes, squares, octagons, pentagrams. One jungle formation even matched the layout of ancient Sumerian temple complexes, despite being on the other side of the planet. And when AI analyzed tribal oral traditions from the region, translated and mapped, they revealed consistent references to sky walls, talking stones, and breathing temples. These weren't metaphors. Some sites are now under active military protection, and drones attempting to scan deeper often go offline. City 4, Antarctica, a city beneath the ice. This one sounds insane until you look at the data. Queen Maud Land, Antarctica. In 2016, thermal scans picked up heat signatures beneath 2 miles of ice. Perfect concentric rings, repeating squares. Right angles where there should be only nature. AI-enhanced imaging, trained on architectural geometry, flagged these patterns with 94% confidence as artificial. But here's the kicker. When researchers layered satellite scans with ancient Sumerian and Aboriginal petroglyph alignments, yes, that happened, they found that several ancient myths referenced a land where the sky touches Earth. And those directional references point directly to this sector of Antarctica. AI went further. Using ancient language patterns, it cross-referenced the myth of the Anunnaki, sky beings said to have descended from a mountain of ice, to the precise longitude of the site. A new expedition was scheduled for late 2023. It never left port. City 5, Yonaguni, the city that shouldn't exist off the coast of Japan, lies a submerged rock formation known as the Yonaguni Monument. Officially, a natural formation. Unofficially, a 10,000-year-old city. Divers have filmed massive staircases, platforms, and a pyramid-like structure. But the angles are too precise, too regular, and there are engravings, symbols. When AI was used to analyze erosion rates and compare Yonaguni to nearby rock strata, It concluded the structures were altered by human hands around 8,000 BCE. That's older than any known advanced civilization. Then it gets weirder. A linguistic AI analyzed ancient Japanese folklore and found repeated references to a sunken mirror city and the singing stones beneath the sea. It matched those phrases to stories from Taiwan and Polynesia. Same legends, same structure. When their locations were plotted on a map, they formed a triangle with Yonaguni at its center. And in 2022, a Chinese deep-sea drone picked up unexplained light pulses from that area. They were binary. Conclusion: the cities were never lost. What do you call something that's been seen, mapped, felt, and even recorded over and over again, but never officially acknowledged? Not fantasy, suppressed. AI doesn't care about politics. It doesn't protect reputations. It doesn't have an ego to bruise. It sees patterns. It sees truth. And the truth is this: these cities may not be legends. They may be warnings, or portals, or tombs. And maybe, just maybe, they were never meant to stay buried forever. The ruins were never the full story. Now we're starting to read the rest.